Hi, welcome to this episode of Let's Get Real. I'm Marge Rossell, and these are my friends who will introduce themselves.
I'm Chris Larkin.
I'm Sue Eldridge.
I'm Ali Wilson.
And this episode, we're going to be talking about defining moments and why those moments were defining to us. So I believe, Sue, that you've got something to share?
I've got so much to share, Marge. How long have you got?
Oh, forever.
Actually, when we were talking about this is what we were going to discuss, it was like, I know you said to me, that was one of those stories. I feel as if there's so many defining moments. Yes. I think God's had to hijack me quite a few times. Did I just snort on television? Sorry. But he has. It's like he's had to stop me in my tracks. But I think that the story that I'm going to tell you, is one about hope, and that's been something that I carry with me since then, really. So my youngest daughter got very ill with anorexia nervosa, and apart from not understanding it at all, as you can see, it's not something I've struggled with over the years. It's just the truth. I'm like, where has this come from? But it didn't matter because I totally believed God was good and I totally believed he was my healer. So I can remember leading worship and singing, I believe that you're my healer. Notice I didn't sing because I didn't want to upset anybody watching. But singing that, totally and utterly believing that my daughter was going to be healed, because that's who God was. That's what my experience told me he was. And anybody that said, I'm like, yes, she's ill, but she's going to get healed. And then what happened is the weeks turned into months, and then the months turned into years. And for me, I went from, I know God will heal my daughter. God will heal my daughter, to God could heal my daughter, to God might heal my daughter, to God won't heal my daughter. Oh, wow. And so, so over the course of the years, what I'd done without realising it is I'd basically brought God down to my experience. Mm-hmm. This is my circumstance there. I'm going to bring God down to that. And the reality was, I believed she was going to die. I'd actually told her that because she'd come up to me and she said, Mum, there seems to be a distance between us. What's wrong? I can't believe I said it, but I actually said, but sweetheart, nobody's shown me how to watch my daughter die. I don't know how to do this. And I guess I'm backing off. So I was at absolute, I think in one of the programs it was mentioned, that scripture where it says there's a time to live and there's a time to die. So I could even make it sound spiritual. And then somebody even wrote a song about it. So I was justified in this is obviously the time for my daughter to die. And it was a very, very painful.
Can I just cut in and say, how did she react when you said that?
Well, if I'm honest, I can't really remember. I can't remember. I think she might have just sort of shrugged and, well, I guess so. Because it wasn't just what the medics were saying they were bombarding us with. You do know your daughter will not survive this.
Yeah.
Oh, you do know your daughter will not survive this. Or if she does, she will live with it for the rest of her life. We were being bombarded by that. And So that's how I lived, and I think I pretty much brought Tim down to my level. So proud, and probably the rest of my family. And there we were in this pit of pain and of unbelief and hopelessness. And I wish I could remember the year. I wish I'd got all these dates to tell you, but I can't remember. But I can remember going to Bethel Church in Redding, California, and I can remember the first Bill Johnson got up and he preached on hope. And I can remember that was when I realised I am hopeless. I have no hope in this situation, but nothing changed. And I came home and we actually put a conference on ourselves, and Chris Valentin and Danny Silk, also from Bethel, had come over. And Danny got up the first session and he spoke on hope, and I'm like, oh God. I know I'm hopeless, but I can't muster this stuff up. I can't pretend I'm real, that, you know, nobody calls Sue Eldridge a fake. I've got to be real. Well, no, I was just in unbelief. You know, I was just sinning really well, because that's what unbelief is. You know, you can all feel sorry for me, but I was in sin. And then I remember Chris Valentin was speaking in the evening. And when Danny was speaking, I remember saying, God, I cannot do this for myself. I need you to give me the hope. I can't do it myself. And in the evening, Chris Valentin stood up. Now, I'm not saying this is for everyone. You know how sometimes God just orchestrates something just for me? Yeah. And Chris stood up and he was talking about hopelessness, and he was talking about unbelief. And he said, if there's an area in your life that you don't have hope in, if you've lost hope and you have no faith for, what you're really saying is you're saying, in this situation, in this circumstance, God, I'm afraid you're just not big enough. You're just not powerful enough to deal with this situation. In fact, he went on to say, more than that, you are saying, Satan, you win. In this situation, you win. In fact, in this situation here, you're the winner. In fact, and I mean, so you can imagine, I'm sitting there like this. And he said, in fact, you're saying, devil, I give you that situation. Wow. This was my daughter. So I saw what I'd done. And I really believe it. And I'm, like I say, I'm saying this for me. This was a me thing. And I saw in the spiritual, I'd actually said to the devil, here, have my baby. You win. Wow, that was incredibly powerful. So there was no in and ahhing. I just took her back. And I can remember, I must have been sitting. I'll tell you what. So in my head, I grabbed her out of Satan's control and I brought her back. And I said to him, I would love to, you know, if you could look at a fly on the wall, I'd love to see what I was actually doing. You know, because I was in the middle of a meeting. I couldn't really stand up. But inside, I stood up and I said to the devil, I said, you are not having my daughter. Yep. Jesus Christ paid the price for her complete and total healing. And I'm taking her back. And I'm telling you, I was cross. I was really angry. I was more angry with me. I said, I am taking her back, and you have not won, and you are not the winner. The only winner in this situation is God. And I'm taking her back right now. Now, the grace of God, and it was the grace of God. And I know in an earlier program we talked about how we've heard God. I saw a picture, and it was seconds. I could have just batted it out of my head, but I saw a picture of my daughter stood, and there was a man with his arm round her, and she had a child on one hip, and she was holding the hands of a toddler, and she looked so well, and that was mine. I knew that she wouldn't die. In fact, not that she wouldn't die, but she would be completely free from anorexia. So I went home and we went to bed, and the next morning I was having breakfast with Harriet, and well, I was having breakfast. She was crumbling a rice cake around the plate for 3 hours, which was tended to be what breakfast was. Yeah. I'm not. And I just said to her, she wasn't walking with God at the time, but I just said, Harriet, I need to talk to you, and I need to ask you to forgive me, because I had lost hope. And I told her the story of what happened the night before. And I just said, I've seen you well. I've seen you have babies, because in the natural, it was completely impossible. I said, you have babies, and I know you're going to be well. By this time, tears are pouring down her face. And she just gets up and she throws her arm around me and she said, Mum, I thought if you'd given up, there was no point in going on. Wow. And you know what? Hope is is a defining moment. When you have hope in a situation that is impossible, it changes everything. Because nothing that I've faced since is...
Yeah. Looking for tissue?
Yes, the one... Oh, here's a tissue, Ali.
Thank you.
It's like when you've had hope in that situation, it's like nothing ever seems too big. And I would love to tell you, ladies, and you know me, so you know this is the truth. I'd love to tell you from that day on, she started eating. We shared a burger and double chips. I'd love to tell you that. However, actually, for 18 months after, things got worse and worse and worse. It is laughable now because I'm like, yay, I've seen this picture. I'm telling everybody about this picture. I'm telling everybody that my daughter's going to be well, and she's just like getting iller and iller and iller. It's to the point where I'm saying to the hospitals, please, can you have my daughter for a bit? And they're going, nah, we don't know what to do with her. We've done everything. I'm like, no. But I knew. And it was like I had to get phone calls from her saying, that's it, I've had enough. I'm going to find a way to end this all. And I'd be like, I know. I've seen you well. I've seen you. So that is one of my defining... Oh, yeah. Tim always says, you forget to tell her. Because it's all about me. It's all about me. So... I will tell you, so 18 months goes by and things were tougher and tougher and tougher until one day she came downstairs and she was glowing and she said, Mum, Dad, I need to talk to you. She said, last night I got to the stage where I couldn't go on anymore. And she said, I was so desperate and I was in so much pain because it just racks your head. It just racks your whole body. And she said, so I laid on the floor in my bedroom and I just cried out and said, God, if you really are real, if you really are who my mum and dad say you are, then I need you now. And she said, Jesus met me in my bedroom. She said, he told me how much he loved me and who I was to him. And she said, I didn't want to come down and tell you because I didn't want to leave she calls it, we now call it like an encounter she had with Jesus. And everything from that moment did change because she started to realize who she was and she started to believe what God says about her. And it was beautiful. You know, I would say it was another 5-6 years of learning. You know, somewhere in the Bible, it tells us that we have the authority to take every thought captive. And that's what she's learnt to do. Day by day, hour by hour, minute sometimes by minute, she has to take the thoughts that she'd let control her for so many years, take them captive. But she has, and she's a healthy weight, and she's thriving in life, and I couldn't be prouder.
And tell us what she's studying, because that is so funny,
It is funny. So I know I've spoken a lot, but she's learned how to absolutely love food. She's learned how to make food such a healthy part of her life. So she's studying nutritional therapy. She's passionate about food. So you go and she's always telling you what she's cooked and Mum, did you know that this and this will make you feel this and this? Obviously, I listen to her every word, and I just put padding on to make all of you feel better about yourselves. But it's wonderful. She's passionate about food. She's passionate about life. She's passionate about Jesus.
That's just so fantastic.
How could I not share that story? Defining hope changes everything. Why? Because we've got somebody that we can hope in.
And I think your testimony will be giving so much hope.
I hope so.
To other people. Yes. It's so important that we have hope, because if you don't have hope, it says hope deferred makes a heart sick, and I think it's just not having hope makes your heart sick. You've got to have something to hope for, haven't you? I think that's great. So
thank you. I just beam. It just makes me beam every time I think about it.
So lovely. Go on, Marge, tell us about yours.
Well, Sue likes to take credit for this miracle.
It's all about me.
It will be 2015, and our eldest son and his fiancée were getting married, and they were going to get married on a beach in Thailand, because that's what you do these days. And so they'd given us 2 years for all of us to save up, and because my husband and I travel a lot, we had got a lot of emails.
Air miles.
Emails. We get an awful lot of emails.
Just doesn't get you anywhere, does it?
And so when he was looking at the flights, he said, do you know, we've got enough to go business class? And because this was a 2-week family holiday, and you know, I've always wanted to kind of turn left at the plane door instead of going right down to economy. And we've had a couple of free upgrades, but to go and know that you were actually going to turn left into business class, I'm like, oh, and I was more excited about that than the wedding for 2 days. Oh. And, you know, reclining seats.
At all,
no, not shallow. Anyway, I get in to talk about, we were talking in a previous episode about image and self-esteem and everything. So as it goes on, and we by this time, before the wedding, we were living in somebody else's house because we'd sold ours, waiting to buy another. And I'd gone through this whole thing of trying to get myself looking good for the wedding, you know, the perfect dress, because I'm the mother of the groom and all that. And my practice, what I love to do, is to take time out most days or every other day, put some music on and just let God love me. Just be in his presence. And once I've done that, I'm good to go. Because I've been through various things in life where the defining moment has been, I found that it's his presence I need more than anything else. But I'd let that routine slip because I'd got into the whole thing of, you know, getting my body looking beach perfect. I still don't know what that looks like yet, because you go on there and
like this.
just like, I try to look just like Alison.
Just like go for the beached whale look. When you talk
We've
about the
talked
beach
Beach
walk.
perfect.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly.
And, you know, I was going on all these machines that shake your weight off, and
I don't know what they are, do you?
yeah. And I was going to the suntan place to get the perfect bronze body and running around for all the perfect holiday wear. And then at probably 5 days before we were due to fly, I just thought, oh, I'll just start packing my carry-on case. And I'd seen my passport on this dressing table a few days earlier. So I went to get it and I couldn't find it. So I looked all over and I could not find my passport. So I start to panic and I call Ian, who was away he's at a conference with your husband.
Sorry.
And he just leaves because he can hear my distress. Aww. We can't find it anyway, so the next day we have to call the passport office and say, I need a new passport. So they said, make an appointment. The minute you make that appointment, even if you find your old passport, it's void. It's cancelled. And I can't get an appointment till 4 days before we fly. So, and our son, because of the logistics of getting married in Thailand, they had to have a registry office wedding in England first. So the day before, I've not told him at all, because I just didn't want to ruin things for him. So I'm distraught at the thought that I might not see my son get married. And at his registry office wedding, this is the day before I go to the passport office, he's, you know, I have a lovely day. God really covered that, because I thought, Lord, I just do not want this to cloud that. And then they said, see you when we get there. And I'm going, yeah, see you when we get there. Aww. And anyway, we drive to the passport office. It's in Liverpool. It's the earliest appointment. And I just sit and sob. She says, are you all right? And I go, no, I want to see my son get married. Like that.
How did you do it?
So she says, when is your appointment? When do you fly? I said, Tuesday. She went, a week minimum, because we have to do fraud checks and everything to see if somebody's using it. So, of course, I'm an absolute mess. And we leave. And I just cannot find God. And I still feel emotional at that, because I cannot feel him, I cannot find him. And that was worse than losing the passport.
I can understand that.
Because that was my practice. I could always reach him. I could breathe him in 30 seconds and he's with me. And I realised that it was because I hadn't practiced his presence. I'd got so caught up in all that ridiculous stuff of trying to get your body looking a certain way, the clothes, the hair, everything. And I'd left him behind. Well, he hadn't left me. I'd stepped away into all that nonsense. And then the day before we're due to fly, it's my husband's birthday. So our son is already in Thailand getting ready for his wedding. He calls his dad and we have to tell him. And so he's devastated. And because of the time difference, he goes to bed. They're absolutely distraught that his mum may not be there. So on my husband's birthday, he said, let's go out for a drive. So we start going, I realise he's driving towards Liverpool. But we stop off at this little country village and we have coffee. We drive on a bit more and we stop. And I know what he's doing, but I just can't, I dare voice it. And he said to me later, he said, I just felt God saying, head towards Liverpool. And he said, every time we stop for coffee, he said, it's like the enemy's going, this is all presumption, it's not God.
Yeah.
And he'd go, Holy Spirit, what you're saying, the Holy Spirit would say, carry on. And when we got to Liverpool, we had a number and I kept ringing it. And he said, well, the fraud checks have passed, but there's no way you're going to get it today because there's a ton of other stuff to do. And by this time, I have asked everybody I know around the world to pray. Sue, already, God, Sue.
I just knew that I knew you were getting on that plane.
Yeah.
I just knew it.
And she had texted me and said, you're going to get on that plane. So you hang on to that. And when we get to the passport office at 4:45, there's a phone call and Ian gets the call. And they said, your wife can pick up a passport tomorrow morning. And Ian said, but we're flying tomorrow morning. And he'd already checked and he said, if they let you have your passport within a week, because he was going to get married I would get there the day before the wedding if there were no flight delays. But he said, it won't be a business class flight. And it's a 13-hour flight. I said, I will sit on the toilets in economy class for 13 hours. I do not care about anything. And so they said, call us back in an hour. And the passport office shut at 6. So I had everybody praying. I mean, people I know who did not even walk with God were saying, were praying. And I've said to my work colleagues, if you don't believe in God, just do something. Just move. Do a dance. And at 5:45, the phone rang and they said, your passport's ready.
Come on.
And at 5:45, I got my passport 5 minutes before it shut, the day before we flew. Wow. And I could not get over I've never had a miracle like that where it was impossible, where they said there is no way you would get that in 4 days. But the biggest, I think the defining thing was losing him or feeling like I'd lost him. It was a bit like, it was a bit like Finding Nemo, finding God, where are you? Was that the importance of just staying close to him. And when we got on the plane, we got on and they sat us down, and while all the economy class are getting on and they're all walking past you, and I won't give them eye contact because I know how they feel because that happens to me. And they said, would you like a glass of champagne? So we took it and we both just went to his awesomeness.
Come on.
And I just toasted his awesomeness. And what was amazing was the next day I'm by the pool and I've got my headphones on and I'm just soaking in his love. And I said, to think, Lord, I nearly didn't get here. And as clear as anything, it was like an audible voice that went, oh, that was never in my mind. I know. I went through all that.
I love that.
But it was just the whole thing of staying close. And ever since then, I've never not felt his presence with me. I can go like that and I just know. And that was, I think that I've got a lot of defining moments, but that still stays with me because I've never seen something that mattered so much to me and been in so much anguish, but the anguish of not being able to find him in that anguish was
That is
worse,
such
really.
a fabulous,
And he is
fabulous
such
defining moment, isn't
an
it?
amazing God. And I just want to say thank you, Sue, because if it wasn't for you, this would never have happened.
Thank you. I appreciate you acknowledging that fact. I just love that,
Yes.
Marge. I just love that he cares so much.
I know.
That you were at your son's wedding.
And my
It's
son couldn't believe it. When we met at the airport, he just would not let me go. And I've got a beautiful photo that a photographer took. After he's got married, I go to hug him and just... And we know what's going through. It's like, you got here, you saw me get married. It was lovely.
Wonderful.
But your medal is in the post.
Thank you.
But unfortunately, it's with Royal Mail. That's why it's not arrived. Shall I tell you about mine?
Please.
do.
So I've always loved God from being little. And so I've always had that relationship with God, but I was always a mess. And I never really knew what was wrong with me. I just knew I was a mess. So I was very detached from people, and I've just always felt like just standing on the outside, looking in, and not really being part of it and struggling to get there. And then I got married, and of course you choose people that you feel comfortable with. So I chose somebody who also wasn't in a great place. And so we did mess together. And I was 27, and I'm talking to my friend, the lovely Pamela Miller. And I'm saying to her, my sister-in-law is like a domestic goddess. I feel so intimidated. And I should just tell you that they'd been for a meal, like at the weekend before.
They'd been to you?
Yeah, so my brother and sister-in-law had been for a meal. And I'd made this stew. And I thought it'd be a really, really good idea to just do it in the pressure cooker, because I was a bit short of time. And I didn't realise...
My imagination's already
that
going.
when you, like, double the food, you know, the meat and everything, you don't double the liquid, and I didn't know this. So she's here, domestic goddess, and as they arrived, there was gravy dripping from the ceiling. And the pressure cooker, all of its gravy's come shooting out the top, and I'm just like in such a mess. And she walks in going, "Oh," and it was absolutely fantastic. Your dinner's on the ceiling.
No, she's a goddess.
So, and I'm telling Pam about it, and I'm going, why is it that everybody else can do everything but me? Everything I do goes wrong. And all she said to me was, one day you're going to have to deal with that. And I went, deal with what? And she went, deal with that's behind it. And I was like, what is she talking about? I thought, she's lovely, but she's a bit super spiritual. I don't really understand what she's talking about. So I let her out the door, and I closed the door, and as I closed the door, God just hit me like this. And
you just might have to explain that.
Just going, oh, good. Oh, no, literally. Okay, yes, literally. Just in case anybody's wondering. Yeah. Suddenly, everything that I'd blocked out for the whole of my childhood came tumbling out of the cupboard. That's what I mean by how God hit me. And I remembered that I was abused by my swimming coach.
Oh, Alison.
From the age of 7 through to being about 11. And I had so blocked it out, I had learned to disassociate so effectively that I actually never even thought about it or remembered it. And even if you'd asked me, I would have said no, because I had blocked it so expertly out of my mind. Because my parents didn't know. And there was no way, because I was told that if they find out, they won't love you.
Oh, wow.
So, classic. And I believed him. So I made sure that they didn't know. And so I never cried. And I just absolutely cut myself off from everybody and everything. I married my husband. I didn't even know what love was, because I wasn't able to do that. So, and so I spent the next 3 nights with the light on the landing. After this moment, sat on the landing with the light on, because I couldn't be in the dark and close my eyes, because it all was just, oh yeah, don't remember any of it. And suddenly I'm reliving every single thing, just over and over and over again.
Did you tell your husband?
No, I couldn't tell anybody.
Okay.
In fact, I'm now 55 and I can only just tell people about it, and I still don't find it easy. But I couldn't tell anybody.
Well, I feel really honoured that you're telling us.
So it's a good job it's only us four.
Isn't it?
So
Good job no one else is listening.
Exactly, that's how I wouldn't like to do it then.
Very
I wouldn't do
brave.
it then.
Oh, bless you.
So I'm reliving it all, and obviously I've just gone into post-traumatic stress, and it's all coming tumbling out. So, and I don't know what to do with it. So I'm 3 days, couldn't go to work, just sat at home, absolutely shell-shocked. And so I thought, I don't know what to do. So I went up on the moors. It's very dramatic. I like a bit of drama. Should have been drama school. I always wanted to either be I always wanted to be an actress or a missionary.
Oh, wow.
When I was a little girl. They're not really connected,
No.
right? I'm neither. But anyway, there you go. So I went up on the moors and I said to God, I can't live like this. You either meet me or I die up here. And I know that's just so dramatic, but that's what I felt.
Sure.
And it was like, I can't do this. It is now abundantly clear to me why I just shut all this out. And I'm up on the moors and there's these people with remote control aeroplanes.
For goodness sake.
What is this? Grown men with remote control aeroplanes flying over my head. And I'm thinking, just leave me alone. And suddenly they all disappeared. I don't mean like puff of smoke. I don't mean God struck them dead or anything like that. Okay, but suddenly they all just packed up and they went. And because I knew that I just needed to be up there by myself. And God met with me in a most amazing way. And God said to me, I cried every tear you didn't cry.
Oh.
And he said to me, if I could have... He said this, and I didn't even understand what he meant. And he said, if I was not bound by my word, I would have rent the heavens and come down to rescue you, because you matter that much to me. And what happened to you was not your fault. And it was like, wow. And that was such a moment that it started my journey, which I've been on for a long time.
You just said about, if God wasn't bound by his word, perhaps if you explain
Yeah,
that.
and I didn't understand it. And it's only afterwards that I realised that God, it was, if he did that, then time would end as we know it. And he has a
He's given
plan.
us free will.
Yeah, and he has a plan in place for the world and people. But I felt I was that important to him that had he not got this plan that had to be, he would have stopped time and come to rescue me. And that changed so much about what I started to feel about myself and what I started to understand about God. And like I say, it's been a really long journey, and I've had a lot of things to work through. And I do know that my default setting when something's really hard is always to run back into disassociation and just leave it shut in a... ignore it and pretend it's not there. And I can do it incredibly effectively.
A lot of years doing that. It's a habit.
A lot of years doing it. A lot of years. But all the time I try and do the opposite.
Wow.
Yeah, I also know it's my default setting to run to solitary because I can do that so effectively. And I have to work at not doing it. And do you know, linked to that, I remember saying to God after my first marriage ended, and I was a single parent and everything, and I said, and God said to me, what would you like? And I said, I would like to be able to feel what it feels like to love. And to really know what that's like. And something happened and I started to love my children in a different way. And just, I loved them before, but now I could really feel that I loved them. And then I met Pete and felt absolutely, hopelessly, head over heels in love. And I'd never felt that before. And it was like a massive restoration to me. That God. So I would just say to anybody, deal with the stuff, because God is gracious and God is amazing, and he will not uncover you and he will not leave you vulnerable. And I can promise you that, because that's not what he did for me. And that he can bring a healing and a level of healing that you can find. But you know what? Get some help as well.
Yeah.
Get some counselling.
Yeah.
Yeah, seek professional help. It's worth working these things through to get to the other side.
Yes, it is. Okay. Oh, wow, Ali, thank you so much for sharing that story. And we will just keep it between the four of us, won't we?
Yes, so nobody else must know, thank you.
Bless you. Chris,
Wow.
we'd love to hear about your defining moment.
Well, you finished with that it's about restoration.
Yeah.
So my story really is about restoration. And it wasn't even a restoration that I wanted.
Huh.
I grew up in a non-Christian home. I was adopted. In those days, you didn't have to go through the process you do today. You could have an informal adoption. So there was an older couple who couldn't have any children, and so they adopted me in their mid-40s. But they really didn't know how to bring up children, so they carried on their life in the way they did before. So I kind of was on my own a lot of the time. In fact, my memory of being a young child is spending the day under the table, because that was a safe place. And I didn't know who I was. And the other relatives, the adoptive relatives, all used to make it clear to me I didn't belong to that family. Now, my adopted mother was Welsh, and my adopted father was a Cockney. I don't know if you've seen Gavin and Stacey, but that was my childhood experience, you know, the Welsh Tafia coming and dealing with the Cockneys. But I knew I didn't belong to either of those. I always felt, who are these people?
Wow.
Even at 3 years old, I felt, I don't belong. Where do I belong?
Can I just ask you, were you adopted straight away as a baby?
A few months old.
Okay.
And because I was on my own a lot of the time, I was left to wander the streets. And at the end of our road, there was a little mission hall. And I used to go there every Sunday and get saved. Oh. And you know what? The grace of those people, they let me.
That's lovely.
They didn't say, little girl, you know, you did it last week, you don't keep coming back. They knew I needed to do that. So every Sunday I'd go and get saved. And then later on, I met my husband and we got married. But all of my life, until I was late 30s, I didn't know who I was. So I created a person who I thought I ought to be.
Wow.
Yeah. I would be whatever you want me to be.
Huh.
I'd be strong, or I'd be this. But I still didn't know who I was. And one day, I decided to go to a conference in Ireland and take my two younger children for a holiday, because we couldn't afford a holiday. We went to this camp. And I knew that my mother was from Ireland.
Your birth mother.
My birth mother. And I thought, okay, I'll go to Ireland. But there wasn't any thought in my mind of this is where my family come. And my father was from Ireland as well. And I was at this conference, and my two boys, they were about 12 and 15 then, were in the clubs. And I was just listening to this amazing teaching. But I knew that I still didn't belong there. I didn't belong. I'm in Ireland. I knew my family come from, but I don't belong. And this man was preaching, and he preached about the time when the friends took the man up on the roof.
Oh, yeah.
And they had to lower the man down in the roof so Jesus could pray for him. And the preach was not about Jesus healing the man, about what about the state of the roof? Those men lowering that man down had to make a decision to make a mess, to dismantle somebody else's roof.
Wow.
Yeah.
And can you imagine all the stuff falling down?
Masonry,
Jesus in the room and the roof's caving in and this man appears through the ceiling. How bizarre is that?
Yeah.
And then he said, there's someone here that you're frightened of doing something because you're frightened of the mess you're going to make. And God's saying to you today, if you will be brave, he will restore to you what you've lost.
Wow.
And in that moment, I knew I had a choice. I could carry on not pursuing to find out where I came from, which my whole family had been encouraging me to do. My mother-in-law, the last thing she said before she died was, please find your mother. My adoptive mother had got cancer when I was 9, and really I didn't have a mother from 9 onwards because she was too ill. So there was no mother in my life. And so my mother-in-law was saying, please, please, please do. I said, I don't want to. I really don't want to. I don't want the pain.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't believe in happy ever afters. I'm a Christian, but I'm not going there because I know it's not going to work out well. So I had no hope, I had no faith, but I had this word that said, you choose now. And on the basis of that word, not even having any desire, I got into the car because I knew the name of the village where they came from, but I wasn't going there. So I said, boys, we're going on a journey. We've got a hire car. We're going on a journey to the village. Now, my middle son, Ben, I mean, he was born old. I mean, I bought him Mickey Mouse pyjamas when he was 3, and he said, they're for babies, I'm not having those. So he's the wise one. And so we got into the car, and he began to suss out, this is weird, why are we going to some place away from this camp where Mum doesn't know anybody in Ireland? And we got to the village, and he said, Mum, what are you doing? I said, I'm just going to ride up and down the street in this village. I'm really not going to do anything. I just want to take a step and say, I've been there. So I've seen where I would have grown up if my mother had kept me, and my father was from Ireland as well. So we rode up and down this village, and then I panicked. I'm like, right, that's enough. We're going back now. I've done it. I've been brave. That's enough. That's all I want. I just want to have seen the place. But my youngest son was like whinging in the back of the car. I want sweets. I want water. I'm hungry. This is a village in Ireland where there are 5 pubs and a church and one little shop. I mean, there's nowhere to go and eat to take children. So there was a little tiny shop that was a house, really. And I said, OK, we'll get some sweets in this shop. Come on, kids. So we got out of the car. We're in this little supermarket, if you can call it that. They've got the sweets. We got to the till. And the woman on the till was just staring at my youngest son, just like that. So I'm like, can I pay, please? She's looking like that. I thought, where am I? I'm in this strange place where this is how they behave. And she's just, and she couldn't speak. And so I said, can I pay for these now? And she went, sorry, yeah. And something made me say, do you know the name of the person? Do you know Mary? What's it? And she said, yes, she's my sister. And this was absolutely not my intention. I said, oh, she's my mother.
Oh, wow.
Well, this woman, the till was open because she was about to give me my change. Wow. There was no one else in the supermarket. She jumped up and she ran out of the shop, hysterical. And then 10 minutes, and so my son Ben's like, that went well. I said, well, we can't leave the shop because the till's open, all the money's there. There's no one else around. I don't know what to do. So we stayed there for a little while thinking she'll come back and I'll apologise.
For ruining her world.
Yeah. And she came back with this man who turned out to be my uncle. And the uncle came up and he started laughing. And she says. Of course she is. Look at her face. I'm the absolute double of my mother.
Wow.
And so this was my aunt. And my aunt is only actually 3 years older than me because my mother, when she was 16, came over to work. And so her sister, who's my aunt, was not much older than me.
Right.
She was the oldest.
Right.
And so my aunt said, my mother lives in the cottage over there and she will be devastated. She will be so upset, that you've done this, that you've come here. So I said, I'm really sorry, I'm going. It wasn't my intention, I'm going. So then she said, well, hang on a minute, just go in that cafe there and come back I'll come back at 4 o'clock and then we'll talk about it. So I'm beside myself with horror.
Yeah.
That I've opened a can of worms.
Yeah.
In my mind, these things never go well. Didn't have any faith, didn't have any hope.
If only you'd known me then.
Yes. And then she came back and she said, I can't believe it. I've just spoken to my mother. My mother, I see every day. She tells me everything. I've just been over to her and said, Mary says, her daughter, this woman says Mary's daughter's arrived, and my grandmother said, I've been waiting all these years for this moment.
Oh, wow.
And so then we went over there, and then the whole family appeared in this house, and it was like they had a party. It was just like the prodigal son. My aunts, my uncle, my grandmother, we had a party to celebrate, and then the phone rang, and my uncle said, it's for you. I said, well, nobody knows I'm here. He said, it's for you. And I went in the hallway and I picked up the phone. It was my mother. And she said, I'm so sorry. I've prayed for you every day of your life. How are you? I said, well, I'm a Christian, so your prayers have been answered. I wasn't brought up in a Christian home. She prayed for me every day of my life. Wow. And she lived in London. And so a few weeks later, just like, you know, long lost family, we met up in London. And the weirdest thing was it was by the Underground. And I've got a little clip-clop wall. Everybody knows when I'm coming because I'm clip-clop, and you can hear the sound of my feet. And I'm waiting by the Underground entrance, and there's a tunnel. And then I heard clip-clop, 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 and I knew it was her.
Wow.
And she gave me this ring, which is called a cladder ring.
Wow.
It's got a heart in the middle, and it's what you give to someone when you're apart, that you'll never be apart again.
That's
so, you know, so that God said to me, I'm in the business of restoration.
Come on, that's who he is.
You know, but it takes courage sometimes. It takes courage. I wouldn't have done that if God hadn't prompted me.
That is
But he
so
prompted me, but I had the
amazing.
choice to have the courage and be obedient. So if anybody out there is frightened of doing something that they really feel convicted that God wants them to do it. And it might not end up like me, but you will have overcome the fear of the unknown, because that's what it's all about. So I bless you if that's you. And he is a God of restoration for all of us, whether it's restoring relationships, restoring health, restoring whatever. He is the restorer, most of all, of our soul.
That's beautiful. I feel like I should say, you know, like they do on television where they go, if you've been affected by any of the issues covered on this programme, and then I always think, what issues? Have I been watching the right programme? Anyway, but we would encourage you to sort your stuff, to deal with those things. Face it on and
Face
be
your fear and do it anyway.
and be amazed about what God will do.
Because that is what it is. You don't have to do it on your own.
That's right.
He's there holding
He's
your hand
there.
the whole way. That is the beautiful thing.
And walking every step with you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be right back after this break, and we are going to have Leah Johnson with us.
We're really
so we're very
about that.
excited about that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Who's
and
Leah?
she's a singer, and she's going to do us a little musical interlude, which we're very excited about.
We'll see you after the break.
See you after the break.
Hi, we're Jake and Nikki Hamilton from One Flesh, and you're watching God TV.
We hope you've enjoyed our series, the first season of One Flesh. If you missed anything or you want to go back and check it out, just go to god.tv/oneflesh and you can get everything you need there.
Love is the best part, love is the best part.
Welcome back. As promised, we have Leah Johnson with us here. She's an actor-singer, and we're going to find out a bit about her before she sings for us later on.
So, Leah, I've been told that you're in a musical, and it's about one of my biblical heroines, Esther. I love the story of Esther because of her courage, because of her bravery and what God did for her. So, and you're playing the lead role. So could you tell us something about it's a musical, I'm told.
It is, yeah. So the show that I'm doing at the moment is a revival of the show Luv Esther that came out 10 years ago.
Okay.
So we've modernised it a bit, so there is kind of texting in it, so it's a real pop musical. So it's kind of
Just like Esther did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and bringing the...
Social media.
Yeah.
Oh, always, yeah. I'm pretty sure it says that in Esther
sure it did,
5:2
yeah.
or something.
Of course it
Esther
does.
text. Yeah, so it's a really kind of like a modern twist on the old story in the Bible. Yeah.
Good.
And I've actually seen it. Well, I've seen a big chunk of it, yes. When I went on one of Nancy Gowdy's spiritual health weekends, it was such a treat. It was so exciting. And the way they do the modern bits was just brilliantly done. I would recommend anybody going to see it.
And where's it on next? Or
Next we're heading to Ireland, which is very exciting. So I've never been to Ireland myself. So we're doing 2 shows there. Then we're going to Preston again, because we had a bit of a disaster in Preston last time we went.
Tell us more.
We had a power cut. So it was 5 minutes before the show was about to go and just completely gone. And we were like, what do we do? So Rob, the guy who plays the king, he went out and apologised to everyone. And it was about an hour later, and we were like, really sorry, we're going to have to reschedule. So we're going back to Preston to try again.
God. The unfortunate thing is, when this is aired, I think you might have done them all. So you know you're going to have to do it all again.
Oh, well.
Because there's going to be a mass stampede.
Absolutely. What drew you to wanting to play Esther?
Well, I've always loved performing since I was kind of really little, actually. It was actually because of a boy. I followed a boy to a theatre.
Fair enough.
But he didn't even join it, but I ended up falling in love with theatre. So when I joined NGM, they said that they were going to bring it back, and I was just like, oh my goodness, Esther is my favourite story in the Bible. And I've had this real calling of Esther on my life. It's something that someone has spoken over me when I was younger. And I thought, oh, this might mean that I'm going to be put in a place of influence. Didn't think it actually meant I was going to play Esther. But,
That's
you know.
amazing. Tell us a bit more about your walk with God.
Yes, so I grew up in a Christian home.
Yeah.
So I gave my life to Jesus when I was 10 years old. I was in my room, I opened my Bible, and it was a children's Bible, and it had like little extra bits written in, and there's a little extract that said about giving your life to Jesus. I was like, go on then, might as well. When you know, the innocence of a child. So just kind of gave my life to God and really encountered him. Just felt so loved in that moment. Then a few months later, I got baptised with my brother as well, which was really exciting. Yeah, so then it's just kind of been a journey for me. It's kind of been a bit of a plodding along through my teen years. Went through a kind of like, when I was about 16, really doubted it. Wasn't really sure what I was doing or believed that he loved me. Yeah, kind of real troubles with like self-image and stuff like that. So it wasn't until I went to NGM when I really started to discover my faith and discover who I was. Yeah, because you're really encouraged to pray with each other, to practice in the gifts of the Spirit, and I started doing a painting journal. So when I got a picture from God, I'd paint it down and put a date on it, and discovering how much God like gives you pictures to the date. It was amazing. My favourite one is someone gave me a picture of a rainbow being like rained down on me, and a whole year later I got exactly the same picture, and because I'd painted it, it was there.
That's
so
amazing.
It's been amazing to see God moving in me and other people.
So NGM has been a very big influence on your life then?
It's been a massive influence on my life. Amazing. Like, it wasn't even part of my plan. I planned to go somewhere else, and someone mentioned this to me. So I applied. 3 days later, I went for an audition, and then a month later, I was there. So it was a bit kind of like, okay, God, this is where you want me to be.
Isn't that wonderful? I think those exciting adventures with God, you're going to have a lot to tell your children.
Yes.
Leah, can you just, for the viewers, tell us what does NGM stand for?
New Generation Music.
Okay.
Yeah, there's been some confusion that it means New Generation Marriages. As Nancy says, that so many people come out of it. I think Nancy counted about 47 marriages have come out of it so far. So yeah, I mean, I've met my boyfriend there.
So any single people watching that's into art need to go to NGM, basically. Exactly. Thank you so much for being with us, and we're really excited to hear you sing. You're going to sing one of the songs from Luv Esther. So.
I am, for this very moment.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. And thank you for joining us again on Let's Get Real. Until the next time, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
I think I must be dreaming, like walking through a mist. Who could think that we could live in such a time as this? In the streets I hear confusion, a terrifying sound. My ears can't take it anymore, an answer must be found. ocean full of need. Their drowning faces fill my mind. Will someone intercede? I see the waves of fear and hate keep crashing on the shore. A tide of evil sweeping in. My anger says no more. For this very moment, is this why I'm here? To stand up and be counted, and to reach beyond my fear. I don't want to drink this cup of sacrifice. Do I have to throw this final roll of the dice? Yet I just can't walk away. And if I die, I die. Why my people? Why my friends? Why my family? What's the problem with my race, my proven enemy? Just like wolves who hunt their prey, they're baying for our blood. Senseless willing, senseless war, my tears will cause a flood. For this very moment, is this why I'm here? To stand up and be counted, and to reach beyond my fear. I don't want to dream